Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am PANCZASU and this is actually a promotional video for my own custom faction. As you may be aware if you watched my previous videos or followed my Twitter, Amplitude recently announced the custom faction creation competition, and the winner of which will actually have his faction implemented in this very game, so everybody is going to be able to play as this faction. Now, I myself have created my own faction called Mesaima, which is a really cool, in my honest opinion, faction of parasites that, well, just want to have your body. I mean, what's wrong with that, right? I mean, they're kinda cute and whatnot, you might as well give them your body. Anyway, there's quite an extensive explanation that I wrote about what they are, what I believe they should work as in terms of gameplay, what their lore is, and so on and so forth. So actually, let's just show you the first things first. The link to the page where you can vote on which faction you want to actually see in the game. There are 99 entries, that's a lot of entries. And I know it's kinda hard to choose from. You can vote for any amount of factions you want, about 10 at maximum. And preferred amount of numbers is free, because then your votes are fairly impactful, but you still vote for more than just one faction, which is just flat out evil. Right now, I didn't vote myself yet because I'm yet to finish reading some of those factions lore. As you can see, there's plenty of them. But please, guys, if you care enough, do check number 25. Those are Mesaima, this is my custom faction. They are parasites, they can infest minor factions, that's true. They have very low base FITS production. FITS is standing for Food, Industry, Dust, Science and Influence, obviously. And the units they receive from minor factions that they are assimilate into their empire, those units get sick and die eventually, so that's yet another difficulty. However, to offset those negative bonuses, the Mesaima are very powerful when they assimilate some minor factions, and that's how they are supposed to be played. Very weak on their own, however, once they assimilate somebody, they suddenly grow very powerful. Now, let's show you exactly how. If I find my post, which is right over there, you can see that there's a link in my signature, and this links to exactly my submission. This is my submission as where I told everybody about Mesaima. This is my entry, and here I define all the gameplay ideas. You can read about them by viewing this link, which I'll provide you in the description, or by just reading what you see on the screen right about now. Mesaima being a combination of Greek words for inside and blood, by the way. And you can read about the gameplay ideas. I think they are fairly interesting. I mean, they're one of the... Okay, I'll not actually go ahead and brag too much and explain why I think that this faction is so cool, because obviously I'm super biased, because I'm the guy who actually designed the guys. But let me explain why I think that those guys would fit well inside Endless Legend universe. First things first, they are unusual. Unlike, for example, Wild Walkers that just focus on industry, or Voters that focus on science, or Broken Lords that focus on dust, and so on and so forth. Those guys do not focus on any particular resource, but they change their playstyle in every game. As you can see, there's a little... Actually, there isn't a little explanation point, I forgot to edit it in. But once you go into part 2, which is a wall of text, I mean, this is just a brief summary I showed you thus far, there's also a wall of text. So, for example, I did mention that the Mesaima get different bonuses, or bonusi, when they assimilate factions. So there are some examples of what I think could be a pretty good idea. So, which also changes the way that Mesaima works. Because each time you play as them, if you assimilate different factions, you suddenly turn into an entirely different empire. For example, if you assimilate Kazanji and Hans and who else, and for example Ursus, then you are very, very secure in terms of food, and you do not really care about winter at all. Or in general, you are pretty powerful in this regard, but because you still have your faction penalties, you're very weak when it comes to dust and science, and even though you have a little bit of things that offset your low influence, you still are going to suffer on this front. Also, you struggle a little bit of with industry, because even though Ursus will give you extra industry, well, actually, this will offset more or less your base penalty, but it will not offset it by much. Keep in mind, I explained all those bonusi by saying that they are low, medium or high increments just because I didn't want to go into actual numbers. This is something that I trust the developers to do much better than me, but this is just a rough example of how I imagine the Mesaima to work, how I think that they will be interesting because of how adaptive they are and how they can change in every playthrough. Because there are so many options that you can develop this faction in many different ways. And keep in mind, in the future, Endless Legend will have even more minor factions. And the devs will also change those traits around to make them even more interesting, but I think that in general, already, these are fairly unusual bonusi that I like a lot. Then you can also read about biology, personality, and the government of Mesaima, which, okay, I'm not going to brag at all about them, because there isn't anything objective I can say about this faction, aside from the fact that they are parasites, with a fairly, you know, advanced government system, all things considered, which is not the best. I wanted to actually submit a short history biography of this race, but I ran out of time, this thread was closed and I was unable to edit my story in, where I basically wanted to explain how Mesaima used to be very weak in the past, because there were too many Mesaimas to vote in the government, so it was difficult to have any law pass through. And also Mesaima kept trying to be, you know, an imperialistic race that conquers everybody, and everybody was annihilating Mesaima as a result. So Mesaima actually benefited from Auriga, you know, having harsher and harsher winters, because those winters weakened other factions and gave Mesaima a chance to grow, even though by themselves they do not have any bonus to deal with the winter. In fact, winter is quite bad for them, because they already have very bad fits and influence. Either way, I hope you like Mesaima. I really do. And if you can spare one of your votes, then I will appreciate it greatly. I seriously will. I tried several times to have one of my ideas make it into one of the Amplitude Studios games. The closest one I got was with a hero creation competition for Endless Space, where I designed an amoeba hero that made it all the way into Games Together Vault, but then dropped out, unfortunately. So if you can make my dream come true, and if you would like to play as a Mesaima, that in my opinion would be a fairly interesting and innovative addition to the game, then please spare just one tiny little vote. Even one vote helps, because there are so many entries, so please, just do it. If you don't want to do this, fine, I believe that you have a very valid reason to do it. If you want to talk more about Mesaima, this videocast is where you can do it. Either way, it was PANCZASU, also known as the Mighty Mixplorer. Thank you very much for watching, and please do check the links that are below in the description. Thank you, and I'll see you online.